Rain is a good thing. Wait. Corn makes whiskey. Whiskey makes my baby
All
go a
right.
little crazy.
I would like to call the planning committee meeting to order at 6 o'clock. I have a full agenda tonight, but first on the agenda, I have a presentation by the Portage Park District. Christine Craycroft is here to share some information with us. Come on up, guys.
Thank you very much. My name is Christine Craycroft. I'm the Executive Director of the Portage Park District. Also here with me is one of our park commissioners, Kurt Orr, who's passing out the copies, and another park commissioner, Karen Wise, who joined the board earlier this year. So I'll give you the brief introduction here, and then I'll pause while you read the memo, because I know there's a lot there. But I'm here representing the Park District to inquire about the city's interest in partnering with the Park District on the preservation of Crystal Lake, the properties that the city owns out there. We greatly appreciate that the city has conserved it all of these years that you've owned it, even though it's no longer used as a water supply. And some of you may be aware that around, interspersed with the properties, the parcels that the city owns, the Nature Conservancy, which is an international land conservation organization, nonprofit, they own some properties that they had bought many years ago. We have been in talks with one of the other property owners that abuts the lake and includes part of the lake frontage, Willis Thomas, and he is willing to sell his property to the Park District, which would preserve the entire lake then. And, you know, that gives us an opportunity to think about, you know, what the ultimate opportunities are there for conservation. And, you know, we feel that the property would benefit from having some sort of permanent conservation protection on it. It's a very high quality glacial kettle hole lake. There have been some surveys on it over the years from different biologists. There are rare and endangered species there. And ultimately, we would like to provide good land management, good stewardship on the property. So with that, I'll just pause and let you digest what I've written there and then entertain any questions you have.
With the Thomas property, what are your plans for the buildings and the house on there? Will that be sold too?
There are no structures on that. There's oil
Okay.
wells, but there are no structures on it.
Okay,
Yeah, that parcel was sort of a remnant from a much larger parcel that included the farm that is on the northeast corner of Hayes and Route 5. But when Route 5 went through, it's a limited access highway, that cut off the frontage for that. So, yeah, unfortunately, for Mr. Thomas's property, that doesn't have any sanctioned access to a local road. And that was the other reason I wanted to talk with you about a range of options, one of which would be simply agreeing to give the Park District access from your South Prospect Street lane there, the drive that goes back.
So I just ask a question. So if you had access to the lake, we would still remain holders of the property and of the water rights?
So what I put down there in the bullet points, there's a range of opportunities. You know, ultimately for permanent conservation, our preference is always to own land, you know, and we feel there's benefits to having a single conservation entity own all of that and manage it as a single unit. The next option could be a permanent conservation easement. That's a instrument that's filed at the recorder's office, and that provides certain uses that can happen on there and then certain restrictions, but it would remain in the city's ownership. So a conservation easement travels with the land in perpetuity. Another option would be if the city, again, wanted to retain ownership but entered into a use and management agreement with the Park District where we would have access through your access. We could go out there and steward all of the properties, including the city's properties, And that could be simply the limit of it, or it could include potential development and use as a park property in whatever form. And then the last option, the very least that we would request would be if we're going to purchase the Thomas property and we have the potential for the Nature Conservancy parcels to be transferred to the Park District, we need to have access to it. There currently isn't any legal access, so.
So my big thing has always been, in which a lot of residents have made quite clear to me about the water and the water resources to the city as a backup, because that is priceless. And that is something that is my biggest concern, is our water. And I know right now we're not using it, but if something were to ever happen, that is our main supply. And I don't know how you even put a price on that, so that is my biggest concern, not giving up our water rights, because that is our water supply for the city. I can respect the conservation and, keeping that. I understand the value of the lake itself, and I wish it could be utilized more, because I've always wanted to go. I still haven't gone back there to see it, but my concern again is the water, and that we still maintain that for our water rights. So.
And one of I think it was last year in November of '22, and at that time, it was unclear with the state. We were seeking a purchase agreement then as well, and we were going to pursue a grant from the state. And at the time, it was unclear that they would allow the city to retain water rights. But since then, I've checked in with the granting agency, and they said that yes, they have done that in other instances where if you did want to actually sell the property, you could retain the groundwater rights for that. And you have a number of wells out there now. I think a long time ago, the city abandoned the surface use of the surface water, being difficult to treat. So that's the answer to that. You could retain groundwater rights.
On the list of options that you have down there, the 4 bullet points, the retention of the groundwater rights is listed only in the first bullet point. Is that also a part of the 2, 3, and 4, or is it not available in 2, 3, and 4?
2, 3, and 4, the city would retain complete fee simple ownership. Yeah, so any use agreements, you would have whatever restrictions you want on those.
And then what would it do to the agreement then whenever we exercise the choice to return to those rights and wanting to use them? Does it dissolve the agreement? Does it?
It could, if it's just an agreement between the Park District and the city, it could be amended. We could write it however works for both of us. With the infrastructure that's still there, I'm not sure. Were you treating the groundwater on site before it was pumped out? I know there was an old treatment plant there from years ago.
Yes.
So, if you would have to reconstruct a treatment plant, I guess that would be something that we would look at. How that would affect if, for instance, we were going to make a park out of it.
If you were going to make a park out of it, and that seems to be covered under the bullet point 3 there about educational programming, doing things there, what do you envision happening at that park specifically? Trails, shelters? What do you envision?
Generally, that's it. The Portage Park District, we're a conservation organization. That's our mandate under Ohio Revised Code. So we don't get into real active recreation like ball fields and high-intensity playgrounds, that kind of thing. So, and the site is mostly natural. So simple hiking trails, a little picnic pavilion, and then, we have naturalists on staff that do education programs of all kinds. So something simple. It's a beautiful site. Future partnership potentially with the Portage County Gardeners Center. They have a facility there right next door. There could be some programming opportunities.
So
Oh.
if we did nothing and just left that lake how it is, what would happen to the species that are there now?
Well, right now, there's a couple of the problems that are going on is invasive species. It happens everywhere. Our guys, are out there trying to beat them back. So that's an issue. There's an invasive plant called Phragmites australis that's out there. It's the giant reed grass. And unfortunately, it likes to it can live in salty things, when other plants can't. And one of the other issues is there's stormwater runoff coming from Route 5, and there's a couple of eroding ditches. So you've got polluted highway water and eroding ditches that are going directly into the lake. I've just had a little bit of a discussion with ODOT about what the potential would be to work with them on coming up with a solution to that. Back in the day when they were putting in highways, they didn't have environmental laws, so that wasn't a concern. But that's something we would like to control. Otherwise, the quality of the water and the ecosystem around there is really going to be affected.
I would be interested if we could have more details along the line if you thought you were able to develop that park and what it would include and a timeline for being able to do that. I know that you receive money from your levy, your countywide levy, and you've been able to expand some in recent years, and we've seen some of what new park development has been in other spots. I'm curious to see to what level this might be developed and how quickly, keeping in mind that with that choice, there's also the complete retention of the groundwater rights. I think that would be something that would allow us to move along here, because we have to make an informed decision on this. And at first glance here tonight, this is just first glance for us. And so we need time to look at that.
Okay. Yeah, we'd be happy to talk with you more about what the city would like to see out there as well. But this year, we're picking up again our 10-year master plan. The board passed it in 2016. Now that we have additional funding, and different things have come on the scene since then. We've gotten new properties. We're going to revisit that and redo our master plan this year. So it's good timing for that, and that would help us to get a sense for priorities. We have a handful of properties that we've acquired in the last half a dozen years that are kind of ahead of it in line as far as park development goes. But, that's what we have to figure out is, our own priorities. Right now, we're working on a park in Brimfield, Kent, that is going to be opened up in November, working on a trail extension to Headwaters Trail up in Manaway. So.
And when was the last park that was developed through Portage Park District in Ravenna?
Well, we opened up Breakneck Creek Park in Ravenna Township
But
fall
okay.
on Lakewood Road. So it's a very small park. It's only 63 acres and more than half of it's wetlands, but.
Yeah, I was just asking for that because might that be a factor to consider on possibly moving this project up the list, on the list of projects that you do have, so.
And, just to add, I appreciate the conservation and preserving what's out there. I think it's a stunning little location. It's fantastic. And to be able to keep it and not, because I think I share a lot of the same concerns with that, the stormwater, the water from the roads coming in from this other, killing things that might be in there that are special to that area. So, turning it into a park with an all-inclusive playground, no. We have enough of those. It's turning it into a park that we can enjoy and see the, what's the nature that's out there. So at least that's my opinion on it, so. Does anybody else?
Christine, I do have a question for Bob and Tim.
Yeah.
Have you guys weighed in any of this in meetings prior to council with the mayor and Christine, sorry. As far as your thoughts overall, how that would affect what's out there?
I've always wanted to retain the water rights. I always think that's, the water rights are
Right.
huge to the city.
Absolutely.
If something happens to Lake Hudson,
I know.
we still have the water rights.
Mr. Content, microphone, please.
Sorry. Thank you.
But yeah, I have always been under the impression to keep the water rights. I mean, that's huge for our city. I've always thought that. Christine and Mr. Rohr came in and talked to us, when was that, a couple weeks ago, about the same thing they're talking to you now. So, I mean, yeah, do I agree with it? I mean, I don't have a problem with preserving that land. I like the preservation of land. But I do think that preserving the water rights for the city is a very important thing. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's, Bob, anything that you'd like to contribute to this that you felt would be helpful for us?
As Tim said, we must keep our water rights. It's my understanding we produce about 1 million gallons a day off of that property. We anticipated our water system to grow tremendously. Therefore, we built a new water plant. We had 9 wells on the property. I believe 8 at one time were functioning, had pumps in them. I'm not sure why the 9th one didn't function. And again, obviously, this is way before my time, but my understanding was the water was impeccable. So that's something we can't give away those rights. We would, if we did get down to inking an agreement, we would need square footage for a lift station, a pump station. We probably wouldn't treat on site. We would probably send it to Lake Hodgson where the system is. We do still have some piping along Summit Road that leads to the treatment plant. That is, it was an old line that, again, we've maintained, not maintained the pipe, but it is still functionable if we ever had to use it. It would be better than installing new pipe at that point. So there'd be a lot of things to consider.
Thank you. I figured that they would probably have the best advice for us to consider, because everything sounds good on paper and the vision and everything sounds good, but when it comes down to the actual parts and the parts that are important to our residents, you know, especially when it pertains to the water, I want to make sure all of that is considered, so.
So I think one thing to consider, and I'm not, chemist or environmentalist, but we don't do anything out there to preserve this land right now. And one. Okay. But I mean, we're talking about invasive species, we're talking about runoff from, I mean, if part of this deal was to retain the water rights, what does the water look like X number of years from now if we're not protecting the environment around it? This could be a good partnership where the Park District is helping preserve the quality of the water through their efforts so that on the day we need to start pumping out stuff, we don't have like contaminated water. Okay, so then.
Unlike Lake Hodgson, we are literally drinking
Right.
the water right out of the lake.
But,
At Crystal Lake, there were wells that were much deeper than the lake is.
so there were no, but wells can get contaminated too, can they not? Yeah, okay. Could be 50 years from now when we would need the water.
And same thing with Muzzy Lake, we're maintaining those water rights also.
Right.
We've been asked to eliminate the well house that's at Muzzy Lake, but we won't do it,
Right.
just in case.
Yep.
And then there's a network pipe still from Muzzy Lake to Crystal Lake.
Does that help?
Again, at some point, we could connect all those together.
Right. Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? Do you have any questions for us?
Just, obviously, this is a big decision, and take whatever time you need. We're looking at another grant cycle with a deadline of October 1st. So if we were going to include the city's property in a purchase agreement for that, or if you were going to entertain the idea of a conservation easement, which has a value as well, not as much as the land value in total, but so if the city we're interested in getting paid for the property, we'd like to roll that into the grant application along with the other properties that we're looking at, so.
Wouldn't you have to have Mr. Thomas's property before it moves forward at all?
We've had a purchase agreement with
Oh,
him
you
in the
have? Okay.
past, yeah, and we're going to renew that with him.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you guys coming in.
We'll continue to
And
explore.
feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you might have anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. All right, next on my agenda is.
Before you move on, do you have any decision to make tonight about
What?
this?
I thought this was just for discussion.
We're just discussion.
Okay, well, I mean, it's
We're not
it's on the
moving it
agenda.
forward.
It's not necessarily just for discussion.
Oh, I was under
That's
the
fine.
understanding it was just for discussion.
That's fine. I just wanted to know if you,
I mean, I can certainly ask my committee, Tim and Amy, do we need some more information before we can move forward on this?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes, but I do think we're fine to move forward and explore it. You know, we're exploring the options right now, but,
I mean, I only ask because there are deadlines for them.
yeah.
And October could come around pretty quickly, especially when they need to prepare for a grant.
I'm not saying move it forward for legislation or anything like that at all,
okay.
but.
Keep it on
we-
the agenda.
Yeah, keep it on the agenda.
Yeah.
We need to talk about it. I think there's some great possibility there, as long as we retain the water rights to have it preserved and even developed a little bit. But we have to move forward with looking at all those different options.
Correct.
We're not moving forward to approve it or anything.
How many people have been out there? Paul's been out there probably.
I've been out there, I'll just say hundreds of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is my memory of looking at the aerial photos and being out there that the real only access to that is the city's property.
Right.
True.
Okay, so any building that will be done will be on the city's property, which will be near the wells again. I just don't, I think they should have access, but I don't think they should be building on our property. It's your water supply here. There's plenty of other parks in here, and you know what? If they want to buy the other part of the lake, and they want to get to the state and say, we need to redirect this salt water. I've been thinking about the salt water problem for 25 years there as they pour the salt all winter on that, and there's that lake sitting down at a lower level. I used to fish that lake. It's a wonderful lake. It really is. But the thought of giving up our property, maybe a driveway, but where would the driveway go to? There's all swamp over there. Believe me, before the city let me fish there, which it was a $5, remember? They gave out $5
Yes.
rights to fish every year. And I tried to sneak in there when I was a kid. There's no sneaking in there from anywhere around the outside because it's marsh, it's a mess. So the reason why it's necessary for them to have that property to do anything is because of our property. And again, our property's worth a lot of money.
It is.
It goes along with the water rights. Thanks.
Thank you.
I would like to, I don't know if we could set something up, maybe Mr. Finney or somebody else that is maybe a little more familiar with that property. And I would like to set up a time to go out and walk
Yeah,
around.
I would too.
Get a visual, seen pictures, seen maps. But I would like to physically go out there and before I
I think that's a great idea.
think we all should go out if we have the
Is
opportunity.
that something we could do, Bob?
Absolutely.
Tim could drive us.
Field trips.
I'd go.
Yeah. I've never seen it. That's what I said. And I don't know that we can really make a decision too without even looking at it.
The current mayor and the previous mayor did not know what to do with this land, other than, conservation and just hold on to it. And
Well, we could certainly explore options and go
I'm-
from there.
I've always been in favor of holding on to land, and the price tag that you see in this report is really negligible.
Right.
It won't do us any good.
Nope. I agree.
So, but land someday, could be 100 years, we don't know. It's going to be valuable.
This is a valuable piece of property, and we owe it to our constituents to get it, to be fair, and the water, like I said, water's priceless.
Well, and we do have the conservation, the very large conservation park off of Diamond, the Emerald Lake, that is still, in the process of removing invasive species and plants and things like that. I think maintaining this, with it being a major water resource, is very important.
There is a conservation easement across it now. For instance, no live bait was allowed to be used. And there's some other
If you look at the colored
things that
map,
I'm not even familiar with.
the back of the letter, the colored map, the green area already has Nature Conservancy, owns that. So there's already conservation
Yep.
surrounding the largest parcel of ours.
Plus the water, the open water is also, has a conservation easement across it too. I don't know how that reads. I've never read it, but
And if they did, according to this map, if they did acquire the Thomas property and the DePaulo property that they have marked as possibilities, they would have access to the Thomas property directly through the DePaulo property off of Hayes Road. And we wouldn't have to worry about any of our property or the conservation property being touched.
I was thinking the same thing,
I think,
looking at the map.
getting out there and looking at it too is gonna help us to get a better picture of what, the map's great, but to see
And,
it in person.
Carol, that's all marshland right there. They can't get to it.
Well, so is the conservancy land. It's all marshland. The only property that's out there that's not complete marsh is ours. So they're not gonna conserve our parcels. Ours are gonna be. Mm-hmm. And parking.
well, how does city council feel about moving forward to seeking ownership from the Nature Conservancy to give us the land?
Good thing our friends in the park is.
That's a good idea.
Can we get it for the same value that they're offering us in the appraisal?
Go for it, Bob.
Go for it.
I still think it's still early phases. I think we should continue discussing it, but I don't feel, as far as, I'm not rushing anything. I think we have to do our diligence and do as much investigating as possible, because this is something that's huge.
Absolutely.
And even though the ground isn't great, but I believe that if any of you have never been out there, some of you mentioned that, I think you'll be surprised at what you see. Conservation-wise, it's great, something you can't see from any other direction until you're back there, I should say, either across the tracks or under the tracks, either way. But I'll just say, if you go back there under the tracks, go real slow if you have wide mirrors. Because
Well, there's
they might not be there,
the garden center.
or you'll have to pull them in.
Trained to
Yeah.
track your.
Well, this is something we'll definitely continue to have a conversation about. So the next item that I do have on my agenda is the roof replacement on the garage at 530 North Freedom Street. This is replacing the roof at the Annex Garage. JBL Roofing and Construction was the lowest bid. They want to move this forward as quickly as possible because the roof has developed several substantial holes causing water damage. So this is something that's going to come out of, it's already been allocated in the budget, and it's going to come out of 2 different accounts. So I believe some of us got an email about it.
Tammy, what are the 2 funds?
The 550 and the 553, the Park CI and the General CI.
Do you have a breakdown of how much is coming out of each one?
I think the total 66,000, so it'll be 33.
Each? Okay.
Does anybody have any questions on that one? And are we okay with them with moving this forward?
Yes.
Yes, Amy?
I'm fine.
Okay. The next thing I have on my agenda is an ordinance for the mayor to enter into an agreement with AmeriCorps to engage in a volunteer program, the foster grandparent program. They're gonna be utilizing this programming, the senior volunteers to assist in summer camp program. None of the volunteers, though, will replace any paid position. So there'll be extra folks there helping out at camp. It does not cover any of the paid positions. So there is no cost for this. We just need to have the mayor sign the agreement.
Yeah, it's a great program. It's been along for quite some time, and everybody is background checked, as you see.
Any questions on that? Are we okay with moving that forward?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Hold on, I know I have more in here. I'm losing my. All right. The next item on our agenda is a discussion about the safety buildings. I think now that we've gotten through a levy and, you know, we have the property and some properties here that are starting to fall apart or have been falling apart for quite some time. It's time to start a conversation back up about the safety buildings. Bob, were you the one that wanted this on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to go ahead?
Oh,
Yeah.
we're looking for direction. If we continue to kick the can down the road, before we know it, we'll lose 3 or 4 more years. Just the planning phase alone is over a year. If council decided to move this to a levy, to the ballot for a levy, then we're in May of next year. Design, construction would be 2 more years. So we're looking at 27, 28 before we could even have a building. So internally, our discussion was looking for direction. What is council going to approve? What other options might there be? We, for the most part, have a price tag. If we wait 2, 3 more years, it's fair to say that's 25% more potentially. So at least for what has been proposed. Other options in the process, we can continue to look for existing buildings that do come vacant, available that are vacant. Right now, we don't have any. Another one would be potentially expanding the fire department into the alley. That doesn't help the police department, though. You know, and I'm still of belief it would be nice to have a new city hall. Not mandatory, but you know, if we're going to do something this large, roll it all into one shot.
I think question I have too is from the very beginning, we all know that the safety building is the main one to do first. If we have to do one, the safety building is the one that is required, that is the one needed to do first. And I guess I'm still not understanding why we did not use an architect that specializes in safety buildings and why we're not using, I guess, the approach of it. And so as far as how do we even know the price tag for sure on this and everything that is really needed when there are actual architects and building places that specialize in this type of buildings?
So the state of Ohio allows for a criteria architect, a municipality to hire a criteria architect as our liaison, our technical expertise, so to speak. If you remember in 2016, we hired a company, Horn & King, and that was their specialty, safety buildings. At the time, we were doing preliminary. What is the square footage required? And assign a price tag. We looked at the Tops building, we looked at a couple other locations, and then their price tag for police and fire. And again, the layout was what specific needs, an office here, an office there, a patrol room or a detain room, whatever it is. Those were the components that were necessary. That allows a price tag. Is it $200 a square foot? Is it $300 a square foot? The current architect, our criteria architect, did that. They went farther and showed steps and other things of part of the building the chiefs had the ability to chime in and add the data that they think, how the functionality would be of theirs. We viewed other buildings. Now, it's a faster process to do a design build, but we needed to know what the price tag is. To sign a price tag, you need to know what material or what the size of your building is, what the footprint is, the style of building, what's the roof and all that other stuff, and they considered all of that stuff. Another form of project management is hire an architect up front. The concern is if we hire an architect to design these buildings at $1.2 million or more or less, a little bit, not much less, and we don't move forward with constructing these, then we spent a little over $1 million to have something on the shelf.
But we've already spent money for a design, correct?
$20,000.
That's still a lot of money.
It's negligible compared to the cost of this project. So the design build literally would cut off a year of time. It's going to take an architect well over a year to design these buildings or building and put together the contract documents and all that other stuff. So then you get a price tag again and we go to a levy. If that's the case, now it could be 2 years down the road. And yeah, the building, we would expect to get 100 years of service out of this building. But it was the fact that we were trying to save time and move forward. That's all. And that's, for the most part, that's the direction we're looking for. How do we proceed? And what does city council want and how should administration proceed? If city council wants us to solicit RFQs for architects, engineering firms, we'll do that. That's no problem. That's a direction. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for direction. Instead of us just spinning our wheels, stuck in the mud, not knowing what direction. Before we know it, it's August, it's September, and then we think, well, now we can't even get on the ballot in May if that was the direction that council wants to go.
And I think one of the things that we discussed too when we got together before was the marketing of, getting put on the ballot, not just throwing it on the ballot, making sure that we're prepared so that we can educate the community about the purpose, the reason, but that we can't do that. That's not something that we have the skills to do, that we would have to hire someone to do that as well. And I think, if I remember correctly, the last time we talked about that, that was something City Council was interested in possibly exploring. But I also would like some feedback on that as well, because that is spending money as well. But I think that, educating our community on the purpose, where their money is going to be going to, is going to be really important in moving this forward. So I think those are two asks that we need. What route are we going? And when we decide that, are we marketing this ourselves? Or are we going to have someone help us support with that?
My thoughts on it, I believe the safety building is a real need, something that we need to move forward with. I believe also that City Hall going over there is a great option, and I think it's something that should be included in the plan as we move forward, as we go to the public to ask for this support. This calculation of how much do we pay for an architect, I think is a real one, a real concern. And it's always chancy. I'm familiar with school construction, and there's always the question about how far down the design path do you go? Do you show people exactly what the building's going to look like, what the interior is going to look like, what everything's going to look like, so that they will really know what they're getting for their money? Or do you just give them a conceptual thing? This is about what it's going to look like, what it's going to contain, what's in it. That's the cheaper option because you haven't paid that $1 million for planning for it. I think given our environment of where we are, we might need to go the less expensive route, talk about what we want, the safety building, the city hall, all that together here. We don't have exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to look approximately like this. It's going to go here. This is how we're going to pay for it. It's going to be a tough sell, but I think that we move forward with it. I think the first thing we got to do is we got to look at how much is it going to cost? I mean, right now, the approximate money for the safety building was what?
20,
20? And that did not include City Hall.
no.
Okay, so if you're talking 20, a few million more for the City Hall in it is not that much difference, you know, in my opinion. And we look at that number, we talk about how we're going to finance it with that, and we go forward. I do agree that if we don't work on it hard right now, it's going to just be more years down the line. And there is a critical need with our fire building, and our police building needs help too. So I'm for figuring out how much money it's going to cost, look at it, and talk about how we're going to sell it. Sell it to the public, make them very informed partners. The more we tell them, the more they can make an informed decision. And I think if we share that with them, they will see that it's a good investment, something good to do, and that we should move forward with it.
My only concern too is down the road is when it does come to fruition, who's going to oversee all this? You are so busy.
Yeah,
Tim is so busy. Who is going to oversee this and to see that things are getting done properly, things are, the guidelines, that's my concern, is that somebody who specializes in these types of builds.
Typically, you have your architect and usually an engineer that team
Construction
up
manager.
and oversee the project.
The criteria architect is scheduled to do that.
But the one that we have currently, do they understand the safety buildings? The criteria architect,
So at that point, they would, yes, they would simply be construction managers. Or the city council could hire a company to manage construction.
somebody that would specialize in safety buildings is what other communities have done.
But even at that point, once the specifications are written, somebody's just, the person or the company would be reviewing the specifications. For instance, Mark Bowen doesn't have expertise of building water tanks, but he's doing it because he has a spec book, and he's reviewing the spec book. It's like a cookbook. You're just going through the cookbook. But you're right, there would be probably 2 or 3 people that are going to manage a project that size, representing the city.
Yeah. So,
I agree with you, Amy. The specs have to be right. The construction manager can review it, but the specs have to be right. I think that's a critical part of it. But hiring an owner's representative to be on site, hiring a specific construction manager with expertise, that's a pretty normal way of doing it. And I think that's something that, of course, we'll try to do.
So, I mean, let's just remember where we are. It was quite a few years ago that we did speculate the feasibility of some of these things.
It's 10 million.
Yeah,
in
and well,
17.
and then we purchased property because that was the plan, right? We decided we're not gonna use tops. We're gonna build on, and we bought land. We hired, and this council approved the hiring of a consultant, an architect to draw up the plans. We have a committee. I don't know, it's been dormant, but we had a committee. And what was the committee developed to do? To come up with the money to figure out how we're going to sell it and how we're going to pay for it. I think, if we keep kind of looping back, we're not going to make progress. And I think your concerns are well taken, but if we keep sort of like interjecting too much of, well, we didn't get this right the first time, we're just going to keep pulling ourselves back. But we need to take into consideration what you're saying and folding it into where we are now in the process. Because, and I'm not in favor of hiring somebody, going back to square one, paying $1 million and all that. I think we're too far beyond that. And if anybody needs to take responsibility, it's this council who approved the plan a couple of years ago. So I hope that what we can do is reestablish that committee and start talking about the marketing, the paying, how we're going to, because even when we talked about that, there wasn't all of a full agreement on council on how we pay for it. So I think we need to hash those things out so we do have an agreement. Because one thing I think everyone can agree upon is if this council's divided, or if we're at odds with the administration on how to move forward, we won't be able to sell it. How are we going to get, people to recognize their financial contribution as residents of this city, and be enough of a majority to approve that when we ourselves are not, wholly supporting the idea? So that's my suggestion, is that we reestablish that committee. We start moving on when we can put this on a ballot, what kind of tax it would be on our residents, and, what the specifications are that we need to plug into the process we have right now. And maybe it will cost a little bit more, but it won't hold us back, and it won't overburden us financially.
One thing that I would like to, sorry, Tim.
I'm sorry.
One of the things that I would absolutely like for us to explore on the financial end is I would really like to explore an income tax levy rather than a property tax levy, because we have a lot of elderly in this community, and I really don't want them having any more property tax burden on them than what they have to. But I would really like to see an income tax levy, because we do have a lot of people that work here and go home elsewhere. They use our services, so.
Yeah, and I did, Cheryl, not to interrupt, but I did do a whole workup with our rep at Rita. We kind of stopped and went dormant when we were waiting for the levy to pass. So I have a whole list of what the.
Because we do
income
have
tax
places
rates-
we've given, tax breaks, that they have employees there that don't only come to work and leave, they need these services just like everybody else.
And they're not going to be, when they don't live here, they're not going to be voting.
Nope.
Yeah, and it's so.
And just my point about us kind of coming together is, as you all know, when we had these discussions, it was in my mind that a property tax was a better approach, because raising our income tax would really put us way up high in the state. So I think it's always worth looking back, or going back and going deeper when we have an opinion, a position we start with. And I'm joining the income tax group because after looking at it more deeply, I think that is a better approach, especially considering the problems we're having with property tax.
Yep.
Not the least of which is they could be eliminated throughout the state before we know it at the next.
I opened my property tax bill today. It came today.
Mine
And I was
came
trying to
last
think, how can we pass a levy with that?
I know.
And the school wasn't on there yet. I
My
don't
only
think
point
we-
is, I think we have really good people on this council that can come together. So let's do that. Let's have deep discussions, and let's see where we are at, and let's not be inflexible.
This is not a criticism at all. This is just a comment. I think one of the things that has slowed it down a little bit here is that we didn't know who should be driving it forward. Is it the administration? Is it the mayor that should be driving this forward and saying, we need this? Is it the planning committee that should be saying, hey, we need to move on this, we need to do something? Or is it city council? I don't know. That's all in the past, okay? And so we don't have to worry about it. But I think that's one thing that slowed us down is there's no champion of moving it forward. We need a champion to move. I'm not volunteering.
You're
You're
elected.
that champion.
You're elected.
So there's
The
some public
chiefs will
comments.
champion it.
But before we get there, I want to make sure everyone from city council has been heard. Does anyone else have any comments on this? Paul, do you have something to share?
I was going to say, if we keep waiting, it's going to end up being 27 million or so. You keep putting it off years and years, and that's, I think that's a big negative.
Matt?
I'm in the same boat as this needs to happen. We need to move it forward and have the serious discussions, how it's gonna be funded, and explain the need to this community. I
Absolutely.
don't think they know that at this point.
Well, and I think it gives us enough time, like we have opportunities like the balloon affairs coming up, and we're gonna have people downtown. What a great way to showcase what's not working for us.
We can offer tours.
Tours, let's go check out the fire station. You can see how
Have
lovely it is
top-notch
inside.
personnel in both buildings.
But, no, I agree, I
Buildings
think,
are in
right.
Horrible condition. It's not a fair match.
Some people have commented, oh, I see the front of it. The front looks great. Well, it's what's inside and
Yeah.
elsewhere.
You saw?
Yeah, Rob? One thing I didn't hear from you this time is something that I believe was correct when you said it, is that we're doing this and it has to be done right this time.
Yeah, I think we can do it right.
Let me finish. Okay, so it needs to be done right. And then my thought is, I don't want it cheap out. I want it built right. I want it designed right. I want the people that are building it right, even if it costs a little bit more. Okay, I want it done right. Because as we know, you talked about the school system. I don't know if you were involved with the high school out there or not, but there's a lot of problems out there. Okay?
nightmare.
I want to know it's done right. Okay? Has anybody here gone to, I know we're not Brimfield, we're not Kent, we're not these other places, but has anybody gone to Kent who has built one of these recently and talked to them? I know the mayor probably has, and you probably have.
We have a
Yeah,
Kent
we're going to see
employee.
Brian.
Okay.
We're scheduling a visit,
Okay.
yeah.
See, these are all things that needed to be done or need to be done. Brimfield just built one.
I've talked to Brimfield.
Streetsboro, go up there and see what 20 million built there.
Yeah.
But, and get ideas of how, they probably put a tax on, but let's do it right. I'm not for cheaping this thing out. And I saw my tax bill today and I'm not happy about it. And to be able to do this and get this passed, you're gonna have to really sell it to me and a lot of other people and do it right. And I'm not sure that doing it correct and taking it for a longer period of time to pay for it isn't the right thing to do, because I agree with what you said originally. This is something that's gonna be at least 50 years and you gotta get it right. I don't wanna hear it, if I live to be another 10 years along here, that the place is falling apart, the roof's leaking. You know, I want it done right.
So,
One way you get experience is by doing things wrong. And so,
That's a good comeback.
on the high school, I was actually thinking about this as we're having the discussion about whether to hire a construction manager, whether to hire a specialist that knows about fire construction. Out at the high school, we hired a roof construction manager just to watch for our interest in putting the roof on, because roofs are so difficult to put on large buildings. We paid the guy thousands of dollars to be there on the roof every day when they're building the roof.
It's still leaking.
It still leaks. It's a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem. So that just lets us know how complicated a project it is. It will be a complicated project.
so I think next steps, let's move forward with getting that committee back together.
Okay.
And start getting some numbers and information back together so that we can move forward, and get this rolling.
Sounds good. We'll work with Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Direction we're looking for.
Yeah, okay. That was good. I have one more item. I don't have one item. Tammy has that item. Tammy's going to talk about the tax budget.
Yeah, I asked Christina to put this on the planning committee. I'm 50-50 for being at the finance committee on the 23rd, so I just wanted to make sure I could talk about it a little bit now. We are meeting on Wednesday, the Budget Commission, and we're working really hard with the departments to get the tax budget details all planned out. So we'll go over that at the meeting on Wednesday, and then I'll be emailing it out to everybody with council. Please look it over. I hope to be here on the 23rd, but if I can't make it, Brian can talk about it a little bit. He'll probably be here, and the committee members can. This will be the tax budget that'll be in place for January 1st of 2026. So it's just an estimate. It's kind of building off of our current budget, and then we have a few projects built in there, but nothing major, because most everything has to come before council anyways, if it's any major project. But if you have any questions, please do reach out to me after I send out the final budget.
Any
Questions
questions
right
for
now?
Tammy?
Yeah, any questions or concerns, let me know. Okay.
All right. Then I will end the planning committee meeting at 6:55 PM.
And I will bring the Community and Economic Development Committee to order at 6:55 PM. It's broke out into into two separate items, but technically it's one. We are just needing to accept and appropriate the 24 CHIP Program Award that was received. City of Ravenna is the lead entity with Portage County and the City of Streetsboro as partners in the program. The grant was $1,050,000, and they did lessen the amount due to the amount of unencumbered RLF funds that we had in the amount of $249,148 that they're requiring be used towards the grant program. Where if we would have spent that money somewhere else, they would have awarded us that much more in grant money, and we would have still had our RLF.
Was any of that money allocated or committed to?
It was uncommitted.
Oh, I thought
So
there was
it
some
was-
projects that didn't come to fruition.
We still have some encumbered funds out there. There was some home funds out there for, I believe it was 3 new constructions to happen within the city. Those are still sitting state level, waiting for them to develop the final tweaks on the program because they were not agreeing on things down at the state with the interest rate changes and OFA being involved. There were some stipulations there. But we did receive the $1,040,000 roughly, and so we need to appropriate $376,100 of the CDBG funds and $424,752 for the home funds, and that will be 8 units of full rehab and 14 units of home repair, 1 fair housing program, and the administration of the grant.
Could you just a little bit more slowly explain the difference between where the 376,000 is going, what program, and the 424,000?
Absolutely.
So the first CHIP is Community Home Improvement Program?
They're both, it's all CHIP program, it's one program.
It's all for one?
It's all one program. There are 4 activities within the CHIP program. There is a full owner-occupied rehab, which they go in, they, everything, head to toe. Then there's the home repair, which is typically 1 to 2 large items, and that's it. So 8 units for full rehab. And
That's under
the 424,000, that's home funds from the state. The 376,000 is CDBG funds. CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, and that is for home repair, and that's 14 units.
And the agency in town is maintaining the applications and procedures.
Neighborhood Development Services, they apply for the grant, and they are awarded, the city is awarded with Neighborhood Development Services.
We're the lead entity on it?
We're the lead entity for the financials and the reporting. NDS, so the CHIP program, when the grant applications are sent to the state, it's a very highly competitive program. And the administration of the program is scored. You have to have your administration actually listed in the application. And if your administration doesn't have enough technical points and experience, then you will not get funded. So being that NDS has done this since the mid-90s, they're extremely experienced. They've always had high ratings on all their monitorings of all these programs. So we're very fortunate that we have them in order to do the program. So if you score high enough and you're awarded, then yes, NDS is our administrator, so they oversee all of the projects. They do all of the applications, so anyone who needs a home repair or a full rehab can contact NDS to get an application and submit their application to see if they're income eligible. Once they're determined to be income eligible, NDS has project managers that will go out and inspect the property and determine the scope of work of what needs to be done, not just to meet your property building codes, but it's a little bit more extensive than that with our residential rehab standards, and those are set by the state. And then they write up the scope, they put it out to bid, they have several contractors. They take the lowest, they oversee the payment process, and work with Tammy in our finance department to pay the contractors directly from the grant.
And thank you for that explanation. Then also related to Rob's question, the amount of money that was in this rolling loan fund that was not used, we ended up having to put that as part of the grant. Why was that not used? Were plans developed that didn't come to fruition, or was it just money that was sitting there that we just didn't get a chance to do it? If we didn't get a chance to do it, it seems like that is pretty good money to fix up houses, to improve things, and I'm very curious how we let $275 million.
275,000.
Anyway, back to 275. That's real money, 275,000. How did that happen?
Because home funds are the strictest of all of our RLF funds. Home funds can only be used for a full rehab. You
Okay.
cannot use it on a home repair. So you have to go in and do a full rehab. It can only be used for down payment assistance for
Okay.
home ownership, and it can only be used for an acquisition, rehab, resale, or new construction. Let me finish.
Yeah.
So our council approved, was it 250,000? I believe that of the home funds that we did for the new construction. The new construction project has not started. That money is encumbered. We still had another 250,000 sitting out there in the home funds. We didn't have any projects that were eligible for
Did that
home
mean we
funds.
didn't have applicants that came forward
No.
that wanted to use the money?
No, because it's RLF, no. It's not the home rehab program. It's not the CHIP program. When it's an RLF, the RLF funds are because there was a CHIP from 20 years ago. Somebody sold their home and they had to pay that money back to the city, and it goes into the RLF account. And then we can reuse it. We've never had the chance or the opportunity because we've always gotten the grants. So we didn't have a place, a time to use 250,000. That's why we were able to allocate 250,000 to the new construction for low to moderate income households.
Yeah, and
As well as the Habitat money also came from that.
Yeah, there's only 135 that we have to commit for this CHIP, so it's not the full 250. There's a couple other things they have planned for the rest of that 250, though. It is completely committed to programs this year.
Okay. I have one other question. Are you coming back next year to explain this when you're not on council?
Maybe.
We'll be calling you.
That's all questions I had. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Are we okay with moving it forward?
Yes.
And with that, I will bring Community and Economic Development to a close at 7:05.
All right, mine's pretty easy this time. We didn't get into the discussion over the ambulance billing yet, so that'll be next month. But at 7:05, we will call Public Health and Safety to order. First item on the agenda is a donation of 48 cases of Gatorade to the fire department from an anonymous donor. We will take the Gatorade and run. not question it. It's only in accepting the donation.
But
So
have no room to store it because the firehouse is full.
I know. I think it's going to go to Tammy's office and Bob's, you know. No. And maybe Jake will take a couple cases too.
We have plenty of room right here.
Right. So again, whoever donated it, I don't know if they know, but it was marked on my sheet. It was anonymous. So thank you if you're listening. That was very kind of you, and we appreciate it, and I know they really appreciate it. So thank you so much for that generous donation. Everybody okay with taking that?
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the 2025 to 2026 School Resource Officer Agreement. Now, Jake, I had heard rumor that there's going to be two. This is still for just the one, correct? I'll go ahead and let you talk. I'm sorry.
This is just renewing our contract from the SRO from last year.
Okay, so this is just the one. There's this for one officer. And did anything change different in this contract from last year?
Just the price, the amount, not by much, it's just.
Just a general increase from the school? Okay. Again, this is an annual thing that we do. This is a needed position. We do have a good relationship with the school in this. Currently, Officer Lincoln is working in the police department now. And I am hopeful that there will be another resource officer down the road because I do think it's needed. Does anybody have any questions in this committee? Mr. Harper, you would know this from working at the school?
Saw him today. He was there doing his job, so summer school started.
Oh,
today, so-
okay, yep. Okay, anybody else have a question that's not in this committee?
Has there been talk about the second officer? I'm looking at you when I say that. Sorry, Captain.
We've filled out a grant to get a second SR officer. Now, that grant isn't required to be put until the 18th.
Okay.
Is the first round, and the 30th of June for the second round.
Okay, so we don't know officially anything, but there has been talk and there is a need that has been shown. I know at the middle school, they definitely, and a couple of the elementary schools,
Elementaries
yeah.
need it.
Yeah, no,
So-
I'm in the
Sadly.
schools a lot for my job, and I know that that's an absolute need, so that's why I was just curious.
Yeah, Cliff, go ahead if you have a question.
Quick question. Originally, when we started doing this, the township was supposed to do their part of it. And the last several times, they were supposed to do the part of it, but I don't hear anything. Not that it's gonna happen, but it's not even in there anymore that we're asking them to help?
So they use a different department. So the townships use the sheriff's department and we use police department.
So the sheriff is in our schools?
No, they're not.
No, but I think what he's
But all
saying
their
is we've
students
talked
are
about.
home in here, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know.
Because the
For
schools
their
are in the
home, I
city.
understand.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to
So,
know, because it wasn't in there anymore.
Right, so there hasn't, it hasn't been revisited as of yet. There's a possibility that maybe with the second officer that they could, were you just raising your hand for comfort? Oh, but anyways, yeah, it's still been on discussion for that, so I do
Necessary.
appreciate
It's
it.
necessary, there's no, but,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden it just was quiet there about it anymore. You're not gonna get it anyway, but at least let's keep asking.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that, thank you.
And Amy, is the way the agreement is written, is the school district pays 50% and the city pays 50%? Is that what it's saying?
Yep.
Correct.
The school resource officer has a long history. I have familiarity with it from when I was in Ravenna as superintendent. When I came in originally, the city paid all of it, and they paid the complete price of the resource officer. Then we went a couple years later where we split it, and then the city got in money trouble, and the district paid for the whole thing for a few years. And now it's going back the other way, that, we're splitting it. It's been a long history of it, how it's paid. And I think it's good to look at each contract as it comes up to see how it's paid.
Right.
And to see, you know, which direction we're going and can we make improvements in it or not each time. But this one appears to be fine.
Okay, is it okay, Matt, if we move this forward?
Yes, I'm good with it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move this forward. Is there any management updates, Jake? Other than congratulations, for those of you who have not heard,
Congratulations.
Jake is now our new Ravenna Police Chief.
No, we have no management updates.
Okay. Okay, at 7:10, I will go ahead and end the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting.
At 7:10, I'll start the Utility Committee. There's only one thing on the agenda. It's the contracts for Central, Freedom, Spruce, and Walnut Water Project. Part of this also includes sidewalks that will be replaced within those areas. Water lines, hydrants, valves will be totally replaced. And this needs to start very soon. Some of these water lines, I'm a little bit surprised they haven't actually burst, but they're very critical, I'll say that. So Cheryl, are you fine with?
I'm good with moving it forward.
Okay, great. Okay, since,
So I'd like to add an item.
Okay.
I emailed it to you this late today. You evidently didn't see your email.
no, I didn't.
Okay. You're familiar with the SCADA project?
Yes, I
The
am.
wastewater plant. So,
Yes.
tracking sheet will say requesting authorization for the mayor to advertise for bids for the SCADA system for the wastewater treatment plant and appropriate $1.35 million. That's the tough part.
You said that really quick.
It's, yeah, it's,
Yes, Bob, I'm totally familiar with that, how that works, the efficiency of it, how critical it is for the total operation.
So the $1.35 million will cover the whole system,
yes.
maintenance.
So it's a complete replacement. So currently, the system is about 20 years old. The components are not available. The company that had been, I'm sorry? Obsolete.
Yes,
The company that was maintaining our system has stated they no longer want to be in the wastewater industry. So, and obviously in 20 years, we have a lot of, the integrating systems are much better now also. So,
Will this system be compatible with any upgrades we're possibly gonna do there
yes,
moving forward?
yes, absolutely. And the engineer that's been working with Bill over the years has left that company and started his own company with his family. They're local in Manaway. He's helping us put the specifications together. The specifications are over 100 pages. It's quite detailed. I'm sure if Tyler was here, he'd be able to chime in most likely, but so it's a big project. And it's independent of anything we do at the treatment plant, but it allows Bill's crew to remote into the system, monitor the system, maintain the system also. Necessary.
And we
In
have-
2 weeks, I'll have the specifications completed for you guys to look at. Said it's a large document. I didn't understand it.
We have the
I'll just
money in
build
our
it.
current year's budget to do this?
We'll be appropriating it with the bids going out with this tracking sheet.
Oh, okay, so, yeah, so this is a bidding process.
It will definitely be a bidding process, absolutely.
It's gonna
And
take
this
a
is-
while then.
Coming out of which funds?
The sanitary sewer fund.
So, I didn't,
CI.
maybe I didn't really read this closely. So is the tracking sheet to approve the appropriate the money and start the bidding process?
Correct. Just authorize the mayor to advertise.
But you still want to authorize or appropriate?
Well, if we don't have the money, then we
Yeah,
can't bid it.
Yeah, that'd be a waste of time.
You know, so from a timeline, we would advertise for 3 weeks, and then we get on council's agenda to approve. So even if we move this forward tonight, we would be looking at a September award to a contractor. If we waited another month, we'd be clear in October. Just the way these
Yeah.
timeframes.
I guess, I always get a little queasy when, big ticket items, and we've had a couple, right? This one and the ladder engine. And I think sometimes I wonder if, and I'm not criticizing in terms of planning, but in terms of budgeting, whether this should be, these things need to be discussed before we establish the next budget. So we're not authorizing a huge amount of money that we haven't put into the permanent budget. So I think sometimes we don't ask the critical question about what happens if we wait and then put it in the budget and then start the process in January.
If the systems start failing, we can't get parts. That's
But that's been in existence for how long?
20 years.
Yeah.
But it's just recently, within the last 2 or 3
I'm
years.
not, I'm not being critical of this project and retroactively for the engine. I just think sometimes, as a whole, the city maybe needs to just think a little bit more about its planning efforts, especially when it comes to budgeting. I only say that because if we don't, then stuck in the middle of a year where we don't have $1 million, we just can't do it. So I don't know what happened a year ago that we couldn't plan for this and have the money allocated. It's okay that we have the money, so that's the good news part of it. I just hope that going forward, we could maybe just try to think about these things, these big ticket items especially, far enough in advance so we get them budgeted for.
This specific item was part of the plant assessment,
I know that.
Reviewed,
which
yeah.
was well over a year ago.
Well, the
started the
assessment was delivered to us just a few
It was
months ago.
delivered to us, right?
But it took quite a while to do the assessment.
Sure, I understand.
And-
Again,
and
I'm not trying to be
honestly-
hypercritical, I'm just saying for the future, maybe we could, think about these things differently.
Well, and just for the record, the department head out there has done an amazing job for many years, running a very, very tight budget, knowing that there were several things coming in the future that were going to need to be replaced, large ticket items, and he has done very well with maintaining.
And if you visited, you know that firsthand.
Yes,
And
and I
he's
have.
developed a lot. I was surprised, given his expertise, how he's developed other software-oriented applications, and he spent a lot of time on them.
Yep.
So I do appreciate all the hard work that people have gone into. I'm just being, trying to be a little proactive in terms of budgeting and planning. And sometimes I know we can't. Sometimes these things have to be done in a certain timeline that we don't have the luxury of planning ahead of time.
And when it was commented that a lot of this is obsolete, you can't even fabricate what's obsolete. You can't design it. It's just done.
Paul, I am okay with moving this forward.
Great, thank you. Okay, the utility committee is a close at 7:18.